And welcome back into a brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat here on the Reality Realm Network. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
My name's Brett now.
and let's dive in. So, we have a fun episode for you guys this week. We are talking about challenges in Survivor. So, we each compiled a list of 5 memorable challenge moments, like in specific challenges over the years. Then we have our top 3 favorite challenges that we like to see. We'll talk about those a little bit.
That's right. So what do you want to start with, Bruce?
Let's start with the 5 memorable challenge moments. I admittedly didn't do a ranking of mine. I just kind of came up with 5. But if you have yours ranked, we can start there.
Sounds good. I do. I'm just pulling up my notepad. So what we're basically, just for the audience to get some information, is in our second list, we're just going to talk about our favorite challenges to watch and our favorite ones as part of the show in general, like the actual competition. In this, we're talking about challenges that we feel have impacted the actual game of those seasons. So rather than saying this challenge, we're talking about a specific challenge in a specific season and how it played out on screen and impacted that season. Because there's been a lot of challenges overall that if you look at a season of Survivor, you can go, okay, and this immunity necklace or this alliance that came out of this reward really changed the game.
For sure.
And with that, let's get into my number 5. And I'm going to start with challenge here that the reason I added it to my list is because I feel if they would still do it, it would have some potential, but it was just broken because it was implemented so poorly. And that's touchy subjects in San Juan del Sur.
Yeah. It it was implemented the same way it had always been before. This cast just kind of found a way to break it and throw it, and we haven't seen it since then.
And that is true. But what I also stated when I was working on this is it was implemented the same way, but we've seen this challenge used a few times. Amazon, Pearl Islands for sure. I believe Exile Island, but I have to go back and watch it. But certainly Amazon and
Definitely
Pearl
wasn't.
Islands.
It definitely was in Panama because Courtney Merritt was the answer to everything negative.
Yeah, that's right. What I'm getting at is we've seen this challenge be played for immunity before. And I think that's the way that they should really go about it because when you're playing for individual immunity, everybody wants to win. The inherent problem with doing it as a reward challenge is that players now know because it makes great television that Jeff offers them the chance to bring other players. So therefore, this alliance that we see in San Juan del Sur was able to break it, knowing that if they all take out one person after the other who's not in the alliance, they all get to go on the reward. Whereas if it's an immunity challenge, only one person is safe, and if you don't have that necklace around your neck at tribal council, you can be voted out. You might think you're in a majority alliance, but all it could take is one person to switch.
Yeah, for sure. And that was, yeah, they broke that a little bit. And I think you're right. I love touchy subjects. It's always a fun challenge. I think it should only be used as an immunity challenge for that very reason. It's easy to throw if it's reward. There's no reason to throw it if it's immunity. So,
Yeah, exactly. The start off once, I don't know if they'd ever do this, but how fun would it be if they used this challenge or even on another challenge, maybe? If we got in a situation where someone wins the challenge and Jeff's just like, there's your reward, go. And they go all by themselves and no one sees it coming.
That'd be great. I mean, Colby went on a reward by himself in Australian
I
Outback,
got
so
He did, and then surprisingly enough, his mom was there, and no one expected that.
yeah,
And same thing one season earlier with Dr. Sean going on the luxury yacht by himself, and his dad was dressed as the captain.
yep. Love Dr. Sean. Love the alphabet strategy. So I kind of have my list of five. The last spot I had to fill, I came up with two. So I'll let you pick. I have Palau, where we have the longest immunity challenge in show history with Ian, Tom, and Katie. Or we have San Juan del Sur with what I called the John Rocker incident.
Interesting.
So, and
See,
again, mine aren't necessarily ranked by favorite or most memorable. These are just kind of what came to my mind. But this was the last spot I had to fill, and I couldn't pick one to write down. So I wrote both of them down.
we don't have a time limit anymore. Let's go for both of them.
So, the John Rocker incident, I'll start with this because we're already on San Juan del Sur. Pre-merge, little bit of background. One of the players on the Orange Tribe, Coyopa, was former Major League Baseball player for a long time, John Rocker, who outside of baseball kind of got in trouble for saying some not great things. And so it was enough of a story that when they got on the Survivor on the Blue Teal Tribe, I guess, Hunapu, Blue Tribe, Jeremy Collins recognized John Rocker and told his whole tribe about the not so great, not so moral, I guess, things that Rocker had said publicly before and gotten in trouble for, and tensions between John Rocker and Natalie Anderson rise as a challenge is finishing. And she uses she kind of recalls the things that he had said and gotten in trouble for. And it raised a whole thing between them to the point where he said, if you were a guy, I'd knock your teeth in right now, or something along those lines. And tensions between the two tribes just kind of boil over completely, which is interesting because it's blood versus water. And John Rocker's girlfriend at the time, Julie, is on the tribe that he's beefing with. And just a wild incident that we've never seen
It's a
anything else
wild
like it.
incident. Obviously, what his past is his past, and you couldn't have described it better. Um, the only thing that kind of irks me about this scene is that I wish it would have been Jeremy who did it himself, because as we see in this scene, Natalie doesn't really know what she's talking about.
Yeah,
And he's using information that's passed to her by a tribe mate to go after somebody when technically, especially in this age that we're in both our countries, Bruce, where things are so divisive, anybody could almost do that to anyone.
yeah, and the information she was going off of from Jeremy, just going off of information like that could be very dangerous because I mean, for all she knew, Jeremy could have just been not, and he wouldn't have done this, but been trying to use that to put a target on John Rocker. But the information Jeremy was giving out was true. Like John Rocker said the things that he was accused of. So I get what you're saying. It's really dangerous and a slippery slope to go off of a second source information like that. In this case, it happened to be true, so I kind of have trouble feeling bad for it. I felt bad for Julie McGee more than anything there. Because when he says the line, if you were a guy, I'd knock your teeth in right now, even Julie's like trying to diffuse everything, trying to calm him. She's caught in the middle. She's in a really bad position there.
Absolutely.
And so the other one for this slot comes from 19 seasons earlier, season 10, Survivor Palau. Final three immunity, Tom, Ian, and Katie. This is the longest immunity challenge to this point the show has seen, I believe.
On something I'm going to talk about a little later, I think it'll probably be the longest challenge of all time.
And it's one where they're standing on buoys and they have to keep their balance. And and I've heard probes talking. It goes deep into the night to where like lighting became difficult for them to film. They weren't. So at one point they tried bringing out these little fires to set up, and I think it was Tom said like we can't do this because like the smoke from the fires is blowing at us. It's impeding us, and they wound up finding a solution anyway. But it goes deep into the night, and they weren't prepared for that, so they had to figure out lighting, which was really interesting. After all those hours, 10 hours, I think, Ian ends up stepping down because he Tom had made Ian feel like he was mad at him or like he had betrayed him. So Ian steps down to try to salvage their relationship and friendship, which I feel like probably would have been fine anyway. I feel like Tom knew Katie would be an easier win and kind of manipulated Ian into stepping down, but or guilted him
Yeah,
into it almost.
I agree. That was such a great challenge. This is interesting because later I'm going to talk about endurance challenges that are over too quickly, and this is almost the complete opposite in that those boots were so easy to stand on, and you were holding in the middle that it wasn't putting really any pressure on one's limbs to the
Yeah.
point that you could have been there all day until you essentially had, I don't know how to say this on a podcast, but washroom issues that prevented you from being up on that pole.
Yeah. It's a willpower challenge more than anything. But
Clearly did not anticipate people after 38 days of surviving on the islands in Palau being able to do it for almost half a day.
yeah, that was insane for sure. So what's your next one?
Next, I'm going to go to a challenge that we've only seen once, and it makes sense because that we only saw it once because it this challenge really fit the Pearl Islands theme of piracy and Pirates of the Caribbean with the movie coming out at the same time. But this is the Walk the Plank Loved Ones challenge. I wanted to put in number 4 here. And how did this change the game? It's not so much of the challenge, but it's the human interaction going on between the players and the loved ones as we see that infamous line, "How's grandma? She died, dude," between Fairplay and his best friend. And Sandra doesn't believe it for a second, making
Uh-huh.
this amazing television.
And everyone else, and this was one I had listed too, so I guess it's good
That's
I
it.
listed two on my last one. But
Nice.
Sandra sees right through it, no one else does. And Sandra wins a point and sends Fairplay's buddy, Thunder D, to walk the plank one step further. And Lil fusses at her that because she's Lil, I don't know why, but that Fairplay's grandma just died, and Sandra just saw through the whole thing completely, which is hilarious. I
And then
still
we get back to camp once Thunder D's won the challenge, and sure enough, Sandra's right.
and I do kind of I still don't like this move from Fairplay. I feel like it kind of go borders on going beyond what lying in the game should be, but it's an iconic moment in the history of the show either way.
Absolutely. What's you for?
I have Cambodia when they're doing the Bermuda Triangle challenge where they're standing on the like wavy floating triangle things and Jeff releases this set of buoys in the water and says the first one to drop out and swim to their buoy wins an advantage. And Spencer Bledsoe and Steven Fishback jump out, swim race to the buoys. Steven gets it, and it ends up being the first ever steal a vote advantage.
That was great. I really like this one. Whoever thought it's interesting because the players would have had no idea, but clearly they had those buoys underwater, so it was always intended. It wasn't like we've got to hurry up this challenge and get some people down. And the steal of votes become a classic advantage of new school Survivor that's been used time and time again.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one we've seen a lot, is that floating challenge on the triangles. So that's a fun one. And talk about challenges that end too quickly. They did that in 42, I believe, when the water was just ridiculously wavy and choppy and everyone was gone instantly. That was wild. So what is your next one?
Number three of a challenge that influenced the game, we're going to Survivor Kolong and talking about dexterity.
Interesting.
Now, this is a really interesting challenge, not so much just because of what it does in the end, but I want to go that it was done on day 38. I want to go all the way back to day one to start the discussion about this challenge. And in Survivor Kolong, Brains, Brawn, and Beauty are given an option in the first ever immunity challenge: dexterity or puzzle. All three tribes chose to do the puzzle. Surprisingly, on Gondol, it was Julia Sokolowski and Anna Kate doing the puzzle. Michelle sat out,
Yeah.
despite what we know of her puzzle skills now. Fast forward to day 38, and the challenge that nobody decided to do on day one is now a challenge that's being given to the final three, where they all have to stack the tower, I think it was to 15 balls, while balancing on a platform and moving through that little maze. And once the first person to do it gets a twist that's only done once that I really wish they would do again, which is voting somebody off the jury.
Yeah. That was a fun challenge. The vote off a juror, I don't mind it. A lot of the fan base doesn't like it. It's interesting. It adds this layer to it. You have to know who your jurors are and who you think is against you and for you. It makes you think a little bit, but this was a fun challenge to watch. I enjoy it.
Rewatching this challenge and that twist to it brings me back to like a few times in university that I've watched jury selection in criminal trials. And it really adds that element of you the winner of the challenge getting that preemptive strike that you would see in a courtroom to remove somebody that they know is blatantly biased. And in Michelle's case, she plays it perfectly, as clearly seen by Neil's reaction.
Yeah, it's great. And so,
I also really put this challenge onto my list because of that element, like I said, about going back to the beginning. And it was neat to see the final three be forced to play a challenge that not one of them wanted to do on the first day of the game.
yeah, that was really great. I like that one. That's a good shout. My next one comes from David versus Goliath, and it's just from recent Survivor, one of the first thing that comes to my mind for recent challenge memories, and that is Christian talking for 5 or 6 hours straight
Oh, this
just
is
to
good.
distract himself from the pain of standing on a perch. Where Alec had been the challenge beast of the season, and it's gotten down to him and Christian, and they're both clearly struggling with the pain and this uncomfortableness. So Christian just starts talking about everything that he can come to my mind and rambles on for 5 or 6 hours before Alec drops off the perch and Christian wins the challenge.
I love the fact too in this challenge that someone who was able to ramble for 4 or 5 hours on random subjects became a university professor in sciences and physics after.
Yeah. That
It's clearly a skill he has.
oh yeah, for sure. And so and Christian's
Absolutely
someone
great
I'd love
challenge.
do what?
Go ahead. No,
Christian's
go ahead.
someone I'd love to see back also.
Yeah, so would I. He was such a great character, very good at the game. Clearly, like in this case, was able to find strategies to overcome maybe someone like Alec being physically stronger than him and outlast him in the end, which was amazing. Great challenge. Great pick here.
Yeah. So what's your next one?
My number two, this challenge we've seen a number of times, and it's contributed to well, probably more winning games than any other challenge. But I'm specifically talking about Worlds Apart and the Maze Challenge that Mike Holloway wins. We've seen Jenna Maraska win this challenge. We've seen Amber win this challenge. We've seen um, Danny Boatwright win this challenge. But the reason I focused on winning the challenge is it was at this very point of the game when we really see somebody for the first time ever be able to say, I'm playing the strategy of the physical game, and actually got to the end and won.
Yeah, for sure. Mike Holloway won playing a physical based game his first try, and Ozzy has tried to do it 4 times and still hasn't been able to do it, just for the record.
So that's where I focused on his game, but like it really does play out a number of times where there's a good case to be made that certainly if Jenna doesn't win this challenge, she doesn't win the game. If Denny doesn't win this challenge, she doesn't win the game.
Yeah,
Mike, same thing. And he's the one who played to win immunity the whole way through and was successful at it, minus really one time when he had an idol.
yeah. I love Mike Holloway. That's a great pick. My last one.
So just before you go,
Yeah.
side note, because I just found this out when I was doing research for this. Did you know Mike Holloway was an alternate for the Challenge USA one?
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So my last one, because one of the ones on my list we talked about with your list, is a challenge where it gave us multiple memorable moments. We had Rupert digging a giant bunker in the sand that his
Interesting.
tribe slept in that night, which admittedly sleeping in it seems like a cool idea, but when it's that close to the ocean and waves come in on the beach, you get flooded.
It's pretty.
If it had been like further back, maybe. But the bunker, famous survivor moment. We have Boston Rob's survivor skills, construction skills being displayed, where Shapira built one of probably the best shelter I've ever seen, other than the one Rob and Sandra made on Island of the Idols, which was just insane. But and you've got Rob Sesternino kind of being targeted and talked about a little bit as this challenge went on for maybe the effort he was or wasn't putting in. And of course, this is from Survivor All Stars, the reward challenge, where each tribe was given a toolkit and told, build the best shelter you can. And Jeff came through with a judge that picked a winner who then won a nice reward for their camp and won, I believe, a toolkit. So and they did this in Africa too, the shelter building challenge, but specifically the All Stars one.
This is a great pick. It's certainly a memorable challenge. Like you say, no one, Rupert is never going to be able to live down that shelter. It's actually funny that you bring that up because I have watched, believe it or not, based on some of my interests outside of some of the things that people know about me. I've watched a subtitled version back in the day of Israeli Survivor
Oh
as an
boy.
international version. And they did one of the best things, to go into another famous challenge. You know where that challenge that you would have where like they would bring a local out, like in Vanuatu or in Palau,
Yeah.
and the winner would get to have the locals show them how to do things in their camp properly. Well, they did that in Survival Israel, except the winning tribe got to have the local guy come out and help them build a shelter and fish and whatnot. And the losing tribe got to have Rupert build them a shelter.
Seriously? Rupert made an appearance on Israeli Survivor?
Yes, that's good.
I mean, that's still a reward. Like bunker aside, you're getting someone who's played the game three
You
and a half times. I'm gonna half count blood versus water, but like he
absolutely.
still knows more about building a shelter than they do. So that's
Oh,
still a
no
nice
question.
reward.
It is. It was just funny because you could tell it was just for ratings, but yes, they brought Rupert to make an appearance on Survivor Israel.
And also heroes versus villains. The villains tribe struggles building their shelter at first, which is weird because the mastermind behind the Great Shapira shelter was on the villains tribe, so I don't know why they struggled to build a shelter so much. But Jerry says at some point, well, this isn't the worst shelter in Survivor history. I was in that on my last season.
I forgot all about that quote.
So, what do you have for us?
Number one, we go all the beginning again for this, and I'm talking Richard Hatch in the Hands on the Huda Immunity Idol Challenge.
That's a good one.
And for those of you who haven't seen Survivor Borneo, spoiler alert, but definitely go watch it. Nothing will. There's many great seasons of Survivor. Borneo isn't the most fantastic on TV, but it's one that can never be replicated. These people invented the game.
Yes.
And in this challenge, you have a situation where Richard Hatch, the first winner of the game, starts basically hands-on hard idol. If you all, for anyone who's just a new school fan, it's where they would put the tribal immunity idol in the middle, make you stand on a perch and hold it for as long as you can. Richard, being a corporate trainer and business developer, starts to think as he's up there a little more outside the box, something that Richard's done the whole way through the game. And in this case, Richards realizes his best chance to be in the final is against Kelly Wigglesworth. He probably has a over 50% chance to beat her.
Yeah.
But he also knows that he needs to not be the one to take Kelly to the end because he's been friends with Rudy Bosch this whole game. If Rudy goes against Rich, Rudy will win. If Rich votes Rudy out, Kelly will win because Rich will look like a total asshole on television for what he just did to his best friend. So, and if Rudy outlasts them both, well, then there's nothing he can do because Rudy's going to the end and Rudy's getting this money. We all know that. So, what Rich does is he decides to make a speech. And before anything can happen, and also so he can't quit against, if Rudy's out first, he can't quit against Kelly because that exposes his strategy.
Yeah.
He goes to make a speech and he says, I'm never going to outlast Kelly, so I wish you good luck, and steps off and sits there for hours upon hours while he's watching Kelly, a 22-year-old whitewater rafting guide, have to battle his friend Rudy, a 71-year-old Navy SEAL veteran, in a challenge that's about endurance. So therefore, Richards masterminded a way to say, if Rudy wins, well done to him. He's winning the show. And if Kelly wins, she's going to take me and I'm going to beat her. Whereas if I take her, she's going to beat me.
Yeah.
And therefore, Rich wins the game. I don't think Rich would have won the game if he doesn't step off doing that.
Yeah. Great strategy from him. It's a really smart move by Hatch there. So I love that pick. That is a great pick. So great job by you there. And he figured it out because if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't do it the exact way he did, he probably loses to either of them. By doing it the exact way that he did, he wins the game and is the winner of the first season and the guy that invented this strategy and invented the gameplay that is still used today. So that's a great pick. So our top 3 favorite challenges. Do you want to go ahead and go with number 3?
My number 3 that I picked here, and this is exactly where I wanted to talk about insurance challenges just not lasting as long, and that I really think this is something production needs to fix, is the famous bucket of water challenge, where
Yeah.
you simply holding one hand above, balancing a bucket of water. We've seen some infamous battles or famous battles in this between, I'm thinking, Rupert and Xian in All Stars, Rupert again and Parvati in Heroes versus Villains. There's been some really long lasting challenges. It really takes tribe members a lot of dedication to really want this. We've seen people being tempted out by food and being voted out all over the place. And then the last time they did this in Winners at War, it was just kind of a bust because there was so many different rules about you're on a narrow platform and can't hold on to your other arm and so on and so forth, which, I mean, let's be honest, Tony did anyway and Jeff didn't catch him. But Tony could have been excluded and gone that night.
Mm-hmm.
But different rules that it turns what used to be a like 6-7 hour challenge into a 20-minute challenge, which I guess is cheaper and maybe better for TV, but it really changed up how what skills are actually needed to win this challenge. Where now we're looking at more balance and strength as opposed to a complete willpower challenge that we used to see, especially with nachos and margaritas and pizza and beer and candy all coming out at all different angles to get you off.
Yeah. And shout out to the first time they did this challenge too in Africa, because I believe that one was won by T-Bird. So
Yeah, won this.
also, now that I'm talking about Africa, real quick honorable mention to just weird, memorable challenge moments was in Africa, the one where they had to drink blood. That was glad I
Yes,
wasn't participating in that.
it's interesting. People who I side note, totally unrelated to Survivor, but my like number one item on my bucket list is to travel overland from Cape Town, South Africa to Jerusalem, Israel, all up the east coast of the original continent of humanity. And that's something that I would actually do if I was in that part of the world just to get to experience the culture.
Yeah. See, I know what my first two are. First two favorites are. My third favorite, I've been bouncing back and forth between a lot of them, and my answer might change after we record this, but for right now, the one I'm going to give a shout out to, since we haven't talked about the new era at all, is why I'm going to go with this one. And I don't know the name of it, but the one where you have to like high step through a grate while like balancing something.
I don't know what the name is, but can we just call this the Jake O'Kane challenge?
Yeah. So Jake breaks the challenge in frustration, and it's the final immunity challenge that D wins in 45, where I was watching the 45 finale and she won. And I turned to my mom and said, she just won the game. I don't care what else happens. We've seen it. We've had other. memorable also. They've used it a lot in the new era. In the 30s, Ben is famous for this challenge for because they had to spell heroes, healers, hustlers, and he put the U in hustlers upside down for some reason. Shout out to Ben. That's one that, like Rupert with the bunker, Ben's never gonna live that one down. This challenge has been used a lot over the years, and it's just interesting to watch because it's very. It doesn't matter what your skill set is. This challenge is kind of an equalizer that everyone's gonna have a shot at. Because even if someone who you think is gonna be great gets way ahead, they're one misstep away from their tower or letters or whatever falling over and having to restart.
If I would get a chance to play this challenge, from what I've seen, there's an easy trick that so many players don't do. Walk sideways.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know why more people don't do that.
Yeah.
So, what is your second favorite challenge?
I'm sure you fully expected this challenge to come up in my list, so it's got to come up here. And that's the three-tiered puzzle from Korong, Winners at War, and then we saw it again in 45.
Oh, with the big tall tower and the water slide?
Yeah, the one that Michelle kicks.
Yeah. I like
Um,
that one because at least with Ko Wrong and Winners at War, I don't remember if 45 was like this. It has like the giant staircase also and the water slide you ride down. And that water slide looks like a lot of fun. Those stairs look awful
oh,
though.
it does. It does look like a lot of fun. And one thing I love about this challenge is that the different tasks that you're doing to get your puzzle pieces take different amounts of time. So as we saw twice, Michelle seems to be behind, but she's not really behind. It's just appearing that way because she's done a how to skill on level one, whereas somebody else is doing an easier one and they're gonna flip. And then they're gonna have to do that how to element on their third attempt, whereas she did the easier attempt on level one
Yeah,
or
for
on
sure.
level element three. And so these players are racing through different elements to get 3 bags of puzzle pieces, like Bruce says, going down the giant water slide. And then when they get to the top, they have to build a tower where all of the puzzle pieces are different heights, but you have to make them combine together to make a level puzzle. Once you're done level one, you put a ring on it, you do level two, level three. Um, so we saw who won this in 45? I think Austin or Drew.
I think so. I don't remember off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
I Austin's winning to my mind. We definitely see Michelle win this in 32 and 40. So it was going to be here being the way that my favorite player got to the end 2 times and still hasn't been voted out. And this challenge will always be synonymous with Michelle as a player. And she even won it in a mini final in the challenge.
Yeah. I also want, before I move into my number two, I want to shout out the just any challenge I've done over years that's been specific to the location. So you're talking about one that your favorite player killed. I'll go to one of mine. Like for example, in Survivor China, their final immunity challenge is well, I have it right here. Todd made it where they're stacking all the little dishes and bowls and plates. I love when they're like related to the culture, like this one was with China, or I feel like there's an
Especially Survivor.
I feel
Go
like
ahead.
there's one in Australian outback, but there or like with Africa with the animal blood one. Like
Yeah.
I love when there's
Boomerangs in Australia.
there is.
The boomerang challenge in Australia that Joey won and took Amber to breakfast.
That's what it was. It was the boomerangs. I knew there was one, but
China did that so well for so many different ones. Like, I still think, honorable mention, I never thought of this when I put it in. I was more thinking individual challenges. But the television quality of that challenge they did in China with the flaming balls and chopsticks that would light off fireworks, and that was
yeah,
impressive to
I
watch.
forgot about that. So shout out to all the challenges where it's specific to the location. Like we talked about with Todd, I love when they just go dive into the culture. My number two, I had this written at number one, but I'm flipping the order on them now. My second favorite challenge is touchy subjects. I love the surveys. I love hearing the who do you think is the laziest around camper? Who do you think in All Stars, who do you think least deserves to be an All Star? And Alicia finds out she's the most common. I like the surveys challenge. I like in Micronesia they had all these little masks that were made to look like their faces. And when someone's rope got the three chops, this giant wooden thing comes swinging out and just crushes their face. And I think it's Amanda goes,
Shows on
"Wow, that's
Amazon,
pretty."
they did that too.
I think it's Amanda even says like, "Wow, that's pretty violent."
Yeah, that was great. And the art department did such a good job at those two. Like in All Stars, just perfectly perfecting the socks hat on Boston Rob's mask.
Yeah, for sure. And again, poor Courtney Merritt in Panama, where every single negative one, she was everyone's answer, the most common answer to. So, what is your favorite challenge?
Episode one, we so in the first half, I'm in to say we finished as my number one, going all the way back to the beginning. And for my favorite challenge, we're going to go all the way back to even earlier in the beginning, and it's Quest for Fire, the first challenge that they ever did. And
Interesting.
that requires the tribe to. This is a tribal challenge. I think the only real tribal challenge on my list. It required a group who never knew each other, never spoken really, other than on the first day, to work together, go through swimming, lighting torches in the ocean, then coming up, carrying the raft, lighting more torches on the beach before eventually igniting the big statue at the end that resulted in Pagong winning the first challenge in the history of the show. And they did this again for the first challenge in All Stars, season 8. Another challenge I'm disappointed that they didn't do for the first challenge in Winners at War, because that would have been amazing to see newer winners like Tony and Sarah and Michelle and Natalie going and doing a challenge that someone like Michelle watched that challenge when she was 7 years old. Would have been amazing to see them do it again in 40, hopefully 50.
Yeah,
But it's my favorite challenge ever, and it's the first challenge they ever did.
my favorite challenge is one that I feel like not a you probably know what I'm gonna say because you and I have talked about this challenge and that I like this challenge. It's one that not a lot of I don't feel like would be a lot of people's favorite challenge. That they it was gone for a while and they brought it back in 43 and I saw a lot of people say like it made them nervous to watch. And admittedly, I don't know that I do very well and that my nerves would take over at some point. And that is the challenge known as Last Gasp, which if you don't know challenge names very well, which I don't blame you, I don't either. They're laying in the water and it starts at low tide and they've got this metal grate above their face. And they're staying in there as the tide rises and they have to bring their face up above the gate to breathe, which I've seen people refer to it as a drowning simulator. That's kind of what it is, but you see a lot of interesting ways people try to breathe. You see them like doing this sort of thing, like making this tube with their hands to their nose so they can get to the air above the water. You see people draping their arms and legs over the grate. You see all sorts of weird ways people try to stay in this challenge. Ultimately, I think it comes down to nerves. The water's rising. Can you keep your nerves and your mind under control in a stressful situation?
Absolutely. This is such a great pick. I know I've heard that from some members of the fan base. To be honest, full disclosure, I am an advanced open water scuba diver. I want to try this challenge so badly. I feel like I would be good at it. I'm just having that diving experience. I'm so comfortable in the ocean that I think I could outlast the rest of the tribe and maybe have something I can win that doesn't take a whole lot of endurance or anything like so many other challenges. So yeah, I love this pick.
Yeah, I'm pulling up the Survivor wiki page for this challenge right now because I'm curious how many times they've done it. Okay, here we go. They've done it in. It made its debut in Palau. So they did it in Palau, Micro, Caramoan, 43, and 44. So 5 times, including going from 26 all the way to 43 without doing it, and from 16 all the way to 26. So one of the more memorable Survivor challenges. They've only done it 5 times. I thought they had done it more than that. The Micronesia one is kind of memorable because Ozzy is known as this challenge beast who's like especially excels in the swimming in the water challenges. And Jason Siska, of all people, outlasted him in that challenge. The 43 one, I believe it was Carla and Owen, broke the challenge, as Prope says it, because they lasted all the way through high tide till when the water started going back down. So he gave them both immunity.
I'm just going to say this when now that you mention that, I don't think they broke the challenge.
No.
Production in my mind screwed this up completely. Just started earlier in the day.
Yeah. Well, I only said broke the challenge because that's how he phrases it.
I
I
know what
don't
you
have a
mean. I
problem
just
with
mean
the way things went. I don't really have a problem with them tying and both having immunity, honestly.
I
But
don't either. I just mean that I hope when Jeff says that this isn't a way of saying we'll never do this challenge again because it's so easily fixable if you just do it earlier before the tide starts going out.
well, one, there's nothing to fix. I don't think we even have a problem. Them both winning immunity is fine. Two, I don't think that was his way of saying they won't do it again because they did it the very next season in 44.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who won it in 44. I feel like it was Jam, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah.
I can
I,
probably.
you're, I know you're right.
I
Saying it,
am
Jeff.
right. Okay, here we go. Here are the winners. Survivor Wiki is so helpful. Shout out to them. We have Tom won it in Palau. Jason won it in Micro. Brenda actually won it in Caramoan. I forgot about that. Shout out to Brenda. I love her. I like her a lot in both of her seasons. Carla and Owen tied in 43, and Jam won it in 44. This is
Yep.
another one that like it doesn't require you to be a a phys- physical player or someone like an Ozzy or Joe or Jonathan that is just a challenge beast. Anyone can win this challenge. It's a mental game more than anything.
You're right.
And how can you drape your arms weirdly over the grate? Because that always becomes a thing for some reason. Arms and legs.
So you want to get into Allied Blindside First Boot before we wrap it up for the week?
Sure. Do you want to go first or do you want me to?
Okay. Um, I know how you like to first boot winners, so I'm going to give you three winners who excelled at the physical game for
Nice.
this episode. Seeing that then you're going to have to align with one and blindside another. So
Yeah.
your options are Mike Holloway, as I've already mentioned,
Yeah.
Kim Spradlin, and Jenna Maraska.
I think I'm going to align with Mike because even though he won, his social game wasn't great at parts throughout the season. He goes on this great immunity run to win, but he kind of had to based on the position he had put himself in. So hopefully, if he does kind of plays like that again, I can get the votes of those jurors that don't want to vote for him. It was Jenna and who else for the other two? Say it again.
Kim Spradlin.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to first boot Kim. Just
Yeah.
that's obvious. She's too good. And I'll blindside Jenna just because that's the only option left. But I would
I'll
enjoy
agree with
working with
you on
any
all
of these
three of
three.
those.
Yeah, I would
I'm
enjoy.
going to agree with you on all three of those picks. Nothing you said would have been different than what I would have said if you gave me those three names. So
Yeah, and
nailed it.
I probably lose to any of the three at the end, but playing 26 days with any of those three sounds like a blast. So here we go. I'm going to go with three people that did really well on my favorite challenge we just talked about on Last Gasp. And you've got
Nice.
Jason Siska, Brenda Lowe, and let's go with Carla Cruz Godoy
I'm
from 43.
I'm yeah.
Welcome back. We had a bit of a technical difficulty with my computer. We're at the end of our episode, though. We only have one set of Aligned Blindside First Boot left. It's three people that won my favorite challenge, Last Gasp. Brenda Lowe. Oh, I had it. Let me look it up.
Jason and Carla.
Yeah, Brenda Lowe, Jason Siska, and Carla Cruz Godoy. Godoy. I don't know how to pronounce it, but there you go.
All right. So I am going to align with Carla out of these three. I think she is a very good player, but one who can also rub people the wrong way and is beatable. I think we would work really well together. I know that she's a fan of Michelle, so we have that in common. I really liked watching her on her season. I am going to blindside Brenda. That makes for a big move that will really help you in the end. Brenda's a great player. Um, I don't think she would be as bitter as she was in Karamoan because would be nothing personal between us the way there was with her and Dawn, but who knows? That's a risk I'm willing to take. And that leaves me to first boot Jason. Jason might be the most beatable player in this group, so why would I first boot him? Well, anybody who believes Ozzy's bleeping stick is an immunity idol can't be part of your alliance. Ask Eliza. She found out the hard way.
Yeah, I'm gonna first boot Carla. I agree. I think she's beatable at the end. But if I'm working with her and something happens that me and her can't get to the end, I also don't trust her to not be bitter and hold that against me,
Yeah.
which is why she's not my blind side. And I could just say we align to the end, but what if we're aligned and some twist happens that one of us has to go? She's going to hold that
Yeah.
against me for some reason. So
Good point.
I am going to align with Brenda. She's the best player of these three, I believe, which is risky because maybe she beats me. But at the same time, maybe I beat her. I think I'm first booting Carla. I feel like Brenda gives me a much better chance to get to the end than Jason does. And I'm going to blindside Jason because there's 0% chance he holds that personal. He takes that personally or holds it against me.
Very
So
true.
it's that's pretty much where I'm at.
Yeah, I like that. Well, this was fun.
It was. And with that, grab your torches and head back to camp. Bye, everyone.
Before we go, Bruce, let me just quickly note next week is not the holiday, so it'll be in 2 weeks. I was thinking when we're going to announce what we're going to do then for a little change and a bit of fun, but that won't be next week. It'll be the week after that.
Sounds good. Bye, everyone.
Bye.